All right, so we are going to discuss in this video the Hebrew vowels. Um, this video focuses on their pronunciation. We're using modern Israeli pronunciation. Other pronunciations exist and often differ on how they pronounce the vowels themselves. So just as an overview, there is sort of the traditional biblical Hebrew classroom pronunciation, which tends to be taught and then not used in the classroom. And what I mean by that is like it's often very Americanized for some people. And then if people do have a good pronunciation, they tend to use something like um, an Israeli pronunciation, or they follow the Sephardic tradition, or those are probably the two most common. Um, So some of these rules that are introduced here, we will need to learn, or it is helpful to learn because they explain how certain things work in the text, especially in relation to the schwa, and we'll get there. But I think it is important that we just understand that different pronunciations, they work, and it's nice to have one that is able to comply with being fluent and feel like a good pronunciation. And there are histories behind each tradition. And so, yeah, as that being said, this book presents a traditional classroom pronunciation. Earlier in the last video, we talked about the Vav and just said that we pronounce it like a V instead of a W. That's an example in which there is this, like, all the textbooks will tell you to pronounce it with a W. However, I personally have never heard that used except for in one YouTube video that was like trying to be authentic in its pronunciation. But um, that that that's an example of classroom pronunciation that or textbook teachings of pronunciation that often doesn't get followed. And so we'll be using modern Israeli pronunciation. I want to be consistent with internally. I want to use one system and just go with it. So that's why there's some differences here. So, but we'll discuss that. All right. So moving on into this chapter, I'm just going to scroll through. I'm sorry if it hurts your eyes. I'm going to scroll through till we find the things that we want to talk about. Okay. Okay. Let's just go ahead and get to the chart, the bigger chart. We have the 5 classes of vowels: A, E, I, O, and U. And all of the A class vowels are pronounced ah. Okay. All of the E class vowels are pronounced, so ah as in Bob. All of the E class vowels are pronounced eh, as in beg. So ba, 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 be, 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 in a somewhat more formal Sephardic pronunciation. The Tsera here gets pronounced a, which is not a glide. So it's not like they. It's actually just a monophthong is what they call it when it's just a single vowel, crisp, clean vowel. Be. Okay, that's just so you are aware. However, we will pronounce them all as the eh as in beg. So all of the A class vowels are ah for us in the modern Israeli pronunciation. All of the E class vowels are eh. The I class vowel is E. All of the O class vowels are o. And the U class vowel is u. Ba, be, bi, bo, bu. Okay. I don't really think we need to cover what the Ashkenazi pronunciation does because it can be quite fun and quite different, but also it's uncommon to come across, less common to come across the Ashkenazi pronunciation. But it can throw you for a loop. Okay. Scroll down. Vowel letters: ba, be, de, same, and bo. Okay. This is with the vav, the holam vav, bo, and the shurek, bu. Same as when they are not vowel letters. Okay, this is where some things are deserve some attention. So these are 3 vowel letters with the yod. We would consider these diphthongs for the first 2, and that means that there is a glide that happens while there's there's basically it begins with one vowel and ends with another, and so there's movement that's happening in the mouth while the vowel is being produced. And so it starts out with your mouth a little more open and ends with your mouth being a little more closed. The reality is that this is the same as our English pronunciation at the end of in the vowel of they. So this first thing here is very instructive. We use a diphthong there. That's exactly what's happening there. And we'll do the same for these 2. So bay and bay. Okay, so this right here, the better thing, we're pronouncing it as an vowel, we're not going to do. Now, in Israel, there's sort of a 2 ways to pronounce this combination right here. I have not heard it so much with this, but for this one, it's common to pronounce this bay as actually just the So I almost feel like making a draw a line to match what pronunciation goes with this, and we could draw one from here to here. We could draw this one from here to here. However, it's also permissible to just go ahead and pronounce them both as bay. So example, Israel, you might hear the word for school is, you could say bet sefer, and that's going to be using the tzere yod, bet sefer, or you could say beit sefer. So that's your options. We're going to stick with just saying be for both. And this is B. All right, moving on down. The Dagesh forte is worth talking about briefly. This is not directly related to vowels, but it's written here in the text. So the Dagesh forte is like in this in more formalized Sephardic traditions, as well as in the textbook Hebrew pronunciations, it is doubled. So double the consonant in which it occurs. So it means that you pronounce the consonant longer, like actually spend more time saying the consonant. This is common. Languages do this. Finnish is well known for their long and short vowels and consonants. Arabic has long and short vowels, at least. I think maybe consonants. So this is not uncommon, and it is included here. In modern Israeli pronunciation, we do not lengthen the consonant, and many Sephardic pronunciations, like oftentimes, will not worry about it either. But some people get persnickety and go ahead and do that, which is good for them. But we will pronounce this as hashamayim instead of hashamayim. Okay, you hear the difference? All right, so that's the Dagesh forte, or the strong chazak. I'm sorry, strong Dagesh or Dagesh chazak. All those are names for the same thing. Moving on. All right. Just as an example here, sefer. Okay, so looks like it's 2 different E-class vowels. You have the tzeri and your sigol. Okay, that being said, we're pronouncing them both the same. So we're going to say sefer. Okay. All right. Rules for schwa. One rule that is wonderful and helpful and great is when there are two schwas next to each other. So first off, schwas. Schwas can be vocal or silent. So what is the sound that a vocal schwa makes? Obviously, a silent schwa doesn't make a sound. So a vocal schwa is kind of like the E class vowels. So it's almost like an e, but maybe a little closer to the I sound that we have in like big. It's within that vowel space there. And so accents, like the stress in a word, never lands on a schwa. If it does, then the schwa changes to another vowel. So, but when there are two schwas next to each other, it is very nice and helpful just to know that the first one is always silent and the second one is always pronounced, unless it's this one exception here. Okay, so this would be mishpete, mishpete, okay? So pe, pe, that would be like your vocal schwa, okay? Let's see. This rule right here, a schwa after an unaccented long vowel is vocal, as in kotevim, okay? That is the Sephardic pronunciation as well as the traditional textbook pronunciation. We will actually, because we are trying to be internally consistent and go ahead and use the modern Israeli pronunciation, we will not follow this rule. And so this is a silent schwa. One thing that is helpful for thinking about schwas in modern Israeli pronunciation is that the goal is to have basically most schwas you want to end up being silent schwas. It's more common to have a lot of the vocal schwas in the traditional textbook pronunciation will be silent schwas in modern Israeli pronunciation. So that being said, can you say this word as a silent schwa? If you feel like the answer is yeah, it feels pronounceable, then do it. So in this case, kot vim. It's very very pronounceable as a silent schwa, so we will pronounce it as a silent schwa. The one difference, however, is so you know that closes a syllable, then the next syllable starts. It's a CVC, consonant vowel consonant syllable, kot vim, whereas the Sephardic or textbook pronunciation is CV syllable, ko, plus te, another CV syllable, plus vim, CVC. So yeah, both are pronounceable, but we're going to go for the silent schwa. It's easy to close a syllable. Up here is another interesting example, though, with that. Ha, ham. So, okay, we're going to do Sephardic here. Ham melachim, okay? Ham melachim. In that case, they're making this vocal because the mem is doubled with this dagesh. So that means that the first syllable is closed. Here it is syllabified. Ham. And then you have melachim, okay? So if that was if there was no dagesh there, it would easily, for Sephardic pronunciation, it would easily be ham lachim, okay? And we will, let's see. Right, so we will actually just think about it first without the ha. So the ha means the, right? The ha means the, and it comes with the dagesh. So let's take that off, and what we have is melachim, okay? Now, why do we pronounce melachim as a vocal schwa at the beginning there, even in our modern Israeli pronunciation. And the reason for that is the pronounceability of m and l together, creating a consonant cluster. It's hard to pronounce those as a consonant cluster. If you did something like b and then like the b sound plus the resh, that would be easy. So brosh, or if you were to do the yeah, so that's just an example where we do consonant clusters in modern Israeli pronunciation. So brosh is handleable. We can do that. Something like shmor. Okay, so in that word, shmor means means to keep. Okay, now Sephardic would use a vocal schwa at the beginning, shemor, but because we can pronounce it together, we will say shmor and make it a consonant cluster there. So this right here is a consonant cluster that is not easy to pronounce. Melachim. It's just hard to say mlachim. That is because the reason why it's difficult to pronounce it is because these are both very sonorant consonants. And so two things come into play when consonant clusters are pronounceable or not. One is their sonorants, and so we like to have a syllable that starts out with low sonorants, so something like a stop, which is where your lips or your tongue comes in full contact with the roof of your mouth or with the upper lip. And so like a T is a stop and a B is a stop. And so that is an example of a low sonorance syllable. Something like mem, however, the airflow goes through your nose, and so actually that, along with like the lamed here, those are both higher sonorants. A vowel is even more sonorant than those. Sort of between the mem and a vowel are what are called semi-vowels, which are like a yud, yeah, where it's like almost a vowel itself, but it's just functioning as a consonant. Okay, so there's just some, you can think about the sonority of the consonants, and you can also think about their place of articulation, or you can just try to pronounce it. If it's hard to pronounce together, just don't. Throw in a vocal schwa. All right, so this right here is ha-melachim, okay? So before it was melachim, before you put on the ha, in modern Israeli pronunciation, we like to maintain the identity of the pronunciation between melachim and when you add on the ha. So we want to make it sound the same. We don't want to go like ham-lachim. It doesn't sound the same as melachim anymore. So we will say melachim, and then we will add on the ha, and we say ha-melachim. Okay. I hope that is not overly confusing. That is the information on the vocal schwa. So here's an example where the word she said in Sephardic is amera. Okay, we will say amra. There we go. Okay. The furtive patach, I don't think I ever talked about this. This is important. So the chet and the ayin, they both, if they're not preceded by an A-class vowel, they like to take an A-class vowel. And so what they'll do is they'll throw it in. So for example, boreach would normally be just borech, except for that it ends in a chet. So you can't end it with you can't have a E class vowel before the chet. So what we're going to do is we're going to just throw in what is called the furtive patach, and that's pronounced before the chet actually. So it becomes boreach, notea, rakia, ruach. Okay, you hear that? Hebrew diphthongs. Okay. You could call these diphthongs, I suppose, or you could say that they're two syllables. It's whatever you want, I guess. I would normally think of these as two syllables. They may, yeah, you can make of it what you want to. So here's an example. I would do a vocal schwa. Devarim. They're both fairly non-sonorant, pretty close together. So devarim. All right, so I would just last little statement is how easy, like b'nai, we will just in modern Israeli pronunciation we will use more consonant clusters. All right, that's it for today.